Welcome to the Hidden Bookcase. Come through and get cozy. Pick a book, your favourite book, that's the one that opens this room. Inside you'll find a warm fire, a loving cat, and a wide skylight to the stars.
And a dangerously high to-be-read pile.
I'm Morgan, I use they-them pronouns, and I am a hungry possum fighting a man in an alley for his last piece of mouldy bread.
I'm Soren, I use he-him pronouns, and I am the distinctly weird little toe on Avra's left foot.
We've been friends for over a decade and are always swapping books.
Each episode, we take it in turns to recommend one another a favourite read. For our grand return, we're bringing back Moist Month.
So today, let's get to talking about...
Running Close to the Wind by Alexandra Rowland. Morgan!
Yes, hello, Soren.
How did you find out about this book? Tell us everything.
Oh gosh. So, cast your minds back to when I first started the bookshop, before we even... it was after we started this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But I bought you a copy of Alexandra Rowland's first book.
Yes.
A Taste of God and Iron, for your birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And I also
what a good choice that
have
was.
A proof copy of that, actually.
A proof?
And yet, I have not read it. But I saw that they were coming out with a new book, and I was like, I'll request a proof of that one. And I got it, and I read it, and it was really, really good.
Mm.
Yeah, and then I went insane and said that we should read it.
And you were right.
Yeah, okay.
And I was frothing at the mouth because Morgan also got me a copy of this book as a present. But I couldn't read it until we were doing it on the show because we knew we were going to do it. So I waited much, much longer than I wanted to. But now I've read it and all is well.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just realised that my blind is on my phone and I haven't uploaded it yet. So I'm going to do that.
Okay.
Because we're professionals on this show.
Yeah.
I am incomparably excited to start Rowland's Running Close to the Wind. I have read A Taste of Golden Iron 3 times, I think, so to be returning to that world is extremely exciting. I know, of course, that it is set in the same world, and I'm pretty sure that it has something to do with the sea serpent mating season thing that gets very briefly mentioned in A Taste of Golden Iron, that only one particular nation knows the secrets of being able to sail during that season. And based on all the sort of kraken-type iconography, I can't remember if they're krakens or sea serpents, but it's one of the two. On both covers, I imagine that will have something important to do with the plot. I know that it's super queer, unsurprisingly. I also know that it has a strong comedic element to it, because I think Rowland talked about it being difficult to publish for that reason, or difficult to sell, at least, based on that on their Tumblr a while back. And I really don't know anything else. I kind of avoided finding things out because I loved A Taste of Golden Iron so much that I always knew I was going to read this, so I was very happy to go in blind, and I'm thrilled to be doing it, so I'm going to start talking so I can start reading it. Unsurprisingly, I got too excited and I forgot to do a wild prediction. My wild prediction is a cameo, isn't a wild prediction. I feel like the boys are going to get mentioned from Golden Iron because they're kind of important. My wild prediction is there is going to be some kind of heist in this, because it just seems like the kind of shenanigans that a pirate crew would get into. And the heist is going to involve breaking someone out of jail, and they're going to end up with, like, a new person who joins the crew. That's it.
Well,
I'll argue in my own favour there and say that they were invading a ship and then they do end up with Avra at the very beginning. But that's not quite correct.
You know, we had a pre-narrative heist. We had sea serpents. We had comedy.
Yeah. We did have some cameos, but not
Did we?
direct mentions of the boys.
Okay.
Cato is the main character of A Taste of Golden Iron, and his sister, arguably, gets mentioned in that she is the Sultan of Arasht, and she is seen here formed out of cake/icing, having a very terrible moment on her chamber pot, and made me laugh so much because she's the scariest woman. And I was like, oh my god. I have to immediately go into this, but it is so crazy reading this when you've read A Taste of Golden Iron, and I cannot wait for you to do so, Morgan, now, because you've become so invested in Arasht, and even in their, like, monopoly on the trade, even though that's obviously wrong, and big up Julian for being like, no, this information should be democratized, everybody should be able to access this. He's so right for that. We hate monopolies here. However, because you spend so much time in Taste of Golden Iron investing directly in the inner lives of the Mahisty royal family, especially because the shipbuilders guild break-in is so relevant plot-wise, and as I'm sure you can guess, that questioning that Avra gets caught up in with the Satiota at the beginning is like a very major thing that happens in A Taste of Golden Iron, and I'm just sitting there like, yeah, if they catch you, they're gonna cut your head off, and I love them, but also they're like very much the villains here, which is so funny. It's just very fun seeing them from a completely different perspective of like, oh, these aren't my little meow meows anymore, and I love Avra, and I don't want them to execute him horribly and violently, but they definitely would if they got up to him.
Yeah.
So, Rowland, you've done it. I don't know how, but I love that these are just taking place in such different genres. It's so amazing.
I remember when I first started this book, and I didn't know what it was about. I'd never, like, really read anything by Rowland. I was kind of just like, yeah, I know that's a pirate comedy.
Yeah.
And then I read, like, the first page.
Yeah.
And was like, oh, I have to recalibrate. Give me a sec.
Yeah, same.
Because also I've only ever audiobooked it. And so I have, and the audiobook narrator is really good at making everyone sound completely unhinged. Yeah. Avra weirdly sounds like King Julian from Madagascar.
That's such a great comparison. I didn't audiobook it because I didn't have a chance, and obviously I had a physical copy very kindly gifted to me by Morgan, so I was ready. I was prepared. But everyone who I've talked to who's listened to this book, like friend of the show, Elle, who's guested on the show, was like, Avra's voice is so ridiculous that I was like, I have to, and I listened to like a sample to see what it was like. And I was like, oh, okay. That's what's going on there. Interesting. Yeah. I don't think that's how I was reading it in my head, but I respect it as a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so unhinged as, like, a main character voice to commit to.
In general, just Avra's voice is so unhinged from, like, a prose point of view as well. I've never read a main character like this in my life, and I had so much fun. I was losing my mind. He's so funny.
He speaks like a Tumblr girly, but in, like, a really, like, coherent way.
Yeah.
Like, he's completely incoherent for the whole book, but, like, it makes sense.
He has incredible character consistency and character depth, despite being, like, a joke character the whole time. Because he's not, though. That's the thing. Like, he's actually quite insecure, and he has all of these, you know, things about his life path, and he's very legitimately in love with Tev, very sweet and very touching. But then also, he's completely ridiculous. And then obviously it's like, it's a facade to some extent, but then it's also kind of legitimate because he is also kind of just here for a laugh. And that's a good thing. That's a great thing.
Yeah.
But he's very nuanced, and that comes through beautifully without undermining the comedy of him. I don't know how that balance was struck, and I'm in awe, basically.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Avra, you would have loved Brat Girl Summer. He would have had such a good time.
Yes. And then his two significant others, because he's got two hands. They've all got two hands.
I was so happy when they finally... I was so worried. I didn't know... I mean, I kind of assumed because it was like a comedy and they were building up to it, but I was like, please, I want these three. They... And Rowland did such a good job with their dynamic as well. Like, they clearly work so much better with Julian in the mix, which is so nicely portrayed. Like, he's such a good compliment to both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so complex, like the three of them.
I have many feelings.
Many feelings. Tell me your feelings.
It took me a while to trust Julian because he's blonde, but he was also such a fantastic character, as was Tev, but I can't talk about two people at once, so I've just got to talk about one first. But Julian was like, I really didn't trust him to begin with. I was so sus. I was like, I don't know about this. And then finding out that he was just like, no, I just want to give this thing to everybody. It was so good.
He's so earnest.
He's so earnest. And his dynamic with Avra is so cute as well. Like, he actually does listen to him and hear him out and sympathize with him. He doesn't just bully him like everybody else, which, you know, is somewhat of a loving bullying.
Yeah.
But also, I do think Avra needed someone to be like, no, I'm going to take you seriously.
I'm going to take you seriously, but also I am going to torture you slightly.
A little bit.
Several days.
For several days. Possibly weeks. I'm not actually sure what the timeline was. It wasn't that long, because by the time they got to Scuttle Cove, Avra was like, oh, I was only at the Shipbuilders Guild like a week ago or something like that. So it was pretty short.
Mm.
Oh my god. I love them so much.
I was going to say, I feel like we have to put an E-rated warning on this episode.
Maybe we will. I don't know. Depends on what we say. In fairness, there was less explicit... I'll use the Last Binding trilogy as a counterexample because Ferromask and Alexandra Rowland are friends.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah.
There was
no
just a lot of
actual,
joking.
Like, on-page sex.
And I was quite disappointed, I'm not going to lie. I was kind of hoping at the end there, I was like, we've had a lot of build-up.
Yeah. Maybe, but no.
Come on. A Taste of Gold 9 has a little bit, so I was like, we'll get some, and then we didn't get any, and I was like, oh.
No. Instead, we get the jokes.
Yes.
And the references.
Which were very fun.
Yes.
Exactly.
I'm just obsessed with Tev going into their journal and being like, I'm going to have to sleep with him. It's completely unavoidable. It's like the
It's
meme
so
where
funny.
it's like, oh, I'm going to have to sleep with him. You don't have to. No, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Like,
exactly.
they're so down bad and they refuse to admit it.
The little asides as well, like, I've told Markeva to stop me. She's refusing, saying it is, quote, not her job. It's just so good. Tev is so good as well. Like, also so funny, but then also so nuanced. Like, their, like, tragic backstory. Their coat. Oh my god. Losing my mind.
The coat.
I loved the coat. I'm obsessed with the coat. The coat poem. That moment between Avra and Tev, where Avra, like, kisses the embroidery.
Yes.
Oh my god. You know that Rowland is also a romance writer when you read that bit. Oh my lord. Oh,
Ugh.
I'm losing my mind.
The nuance, the vibes. The fact that Tev and Avra aren't actually very good at sex once they get down to it.
I also really
so
thought that was funny
important
and
to me.
interesting. Yeah.
Like, they're so hot for each other and then they're like, oh, eh. But
Also the fact
do
that
it.
they like different aspects of it, I thought was kind of interesting, and that they're not very well matched in that way. That like Avra's like, foreplay and aftercare is more important to me, and Tev's like, no. Those things don't matter to me. I thought was like very interesting, and also like you still really love them as like a dynamic, but it's like, I don't know, it feels like weirdly like nice and realistic to be like, yeah, they're still like right for each other. I don't think you can come out of this book and be like, nah, they shouldn't be together, but like they're not like magically like, oh, everything's amazingly perfect and kind of thing.
Yeah. They have different love languages. They need a
Exactly.
translator. They need Mr. 652, aka Julian.
Exactly. And Julian's good at all 5 acts of the opera, so he'll satisfy both of them in their preferred acts, and then
Exactly.
it'll be fine. Like, Tev doesn't have to cuddle anybody, Julian can do it, and then, you know, it's perfect.
Exactly.
I really liked how this book, like, approached sex in general, actually. Like, obviously lots of sex jokes, very fun, very funny, but also, I felt that it was just, like, a very, like, I don't know, because it's obviously not in a large section of fiction at all. Sometimes it just doesn't get explored as like, yeah, this is a thing that humans do, and it has emotional effects on people and stuff like that. Like, obviously, Julian's tragic celibacy vow was like played as a joke a lot, but then it was also kind of played straight a little bit as like, this is like a tool of an oppressive regime that's being used to like deny him this thing that he enjoys doing. You know, that isn't fundamental to his survival, but he likes doing it. And it's like genuinely very sad that he felt forced to give that up.
Yeah.
For his own safety.
Exactly. And Tev and Avra bonding over the trauma of being like, he was
Of
an
being flirted
artist
with.
cut down in his prime. I'm going
And
to
he
seduce him
was.
before you can. Ha ha ha.
After A Taste of Gold 9 and this, I don't have a good opinion of Vint. It seems very unreasonable. I'm sure we'll eventually get a novel set there and I'll be like, no, it's fine. There's all these great aspects about it, but so far I'm like, what are you guys doing? Although I can't imagine you would have a good opinion of Arasht coming out of this book. And I'm like, no, Arasht is good. There's all these good things about it.
Uh-huh. propaganda.
It is kind of propaganda, and that's fine. The ambassador was also so funny. I loved him.
So
I love to hate him.
confused.
He did not know anything. And also all of Avra's interactions with the ambassador was so fun from like a character point of view as well, because you could see how he could actually really hold his own in this area in conversation, despite the fact that he was freaking out.
Mm. Yeah. It's like, oh, I can see how you managed to survive 15 years as a spy. Okay. You've charmed me. You're gentle parenting this man.
Apart from just going to the Street of Flowers and finding out all the secrets from there.
Yeah.
Also, can we shout out to Kat? I loved Kat.
Loved him.
Kat is such an icon.
Yeah. Such a supportive bestie.
If he doesn't appear in other books, I am also going to riot. Like, I need him again.
Main character when?
Like, literally every side character in this is so fun and so vivid. Blackguarder and her wife. These lesbians with their cakes and their pack of dogs. I'm obsessed with them. Can I have a whole novel about these two, please? How did they meet?
Please. They've got it
Consensually
down.
kidnapping? Is that not what they said? I want to know. Kel, tell me everything.
She just wants some blue dogs. What more could you ask for?
And so would I, if there were blue dogs that glowed. I just immediately thought about the third collar line that Julian said
Oh, yes.
when they make a spare collar. Absolutely. One of the reasons, it took me a while to read this book, Bookworms, and the reason was that I was like, I can't read this on public transport because I will be laughing in public, and that will be insane. I read it in the staff room and had very near, like, I was laughing, and I was just like, everyone ignore me, it's fine.
Literally both times I've read it, I've had to read it at home because I was like, I cannot go into public like this.
No.
Just every other line, I was like actually out loud laughing.
I quite genuinely don't think a book has ever made me laugh this much in my life. Like, I cannot think of a single example that comes close.
Yeah. And just side tangent, but like the way that Rowland like weaves different subplots in, like objectively the plot of this is, oh, we're trying to sell these papers. But then the cake competition is so important.
The cake competition.
And it's a cake competition. And then just everything else, like all of the romance subplots that are going on. But there's so many different moving parts that feel like they're not relevant, but they are.
Rowland is honestly just so clever. I like the bits of the setup and the payoff of Avra's luck power. Also so cool. I love the way that it functions. Yes. It's so interesting, and it doesn't manage to ruin the stakes at any point, which is something that I was thinking about early on. Not in a, oh, this is going to ruin the stakes, because I trust Rowland enough that I was like, I know they'll do something interesting with this. But I was surprised at how effectively they executed on that, in that in some ways it was kind of useful, right? Because this is a comedy. So you don't actually want to be like, oh my god, Avra's probably going to die. Like, you know, you kind of go into this being like, it's probably going to be fine. And Avra's luck somewhat is helpful there, but it never felt like there were no stakes, even though you were like, Avra is probably fine. And so are the people around him, materially. Like, you still wanted to know what was going on. And then Avra losing his entire stake in the prize, and then the Satiota coming in later and questioning him, and him being like, no, I don't stand to profit. Incredible. No notes. I loved that so much.
I think because it felt not exactly random, but it felt like the outcome was still unpredictable because Avra and the others don't know how it works.
Yeah, exactly, because the mystery is still there, and you're like, why has this even happened? I don't understand.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel like Hand of God. It doesn't feel like too railroaded or anything like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, or protagonist Sama. It just feels like good writing. Should we talk about the cover?
Yes, let's talk about the cover. We always forget to do this at the moment.
I have a proof copy, so I have a blue cover.
I do like the proof, and also I'm a little bit biased towards the proof because it matches Taste of Gold 9, because that's also blue and gold, and I'm like, the synergy. I have the UK hardback, which is red and gold, and is gorgeous, to be fair. So
it is.
I can't complain. It's beautiful. All of the, like, damask patterns in the background. Very, very gorgeous. I will say, controversial possibly, don't love the American cover.
I don't like the colour scheme.
Yeah, I can see why they were like, let's do like a bright, fun colour scheme, because it's a bright and fun book. Like, it does reflect the tone. But I just don't personally like it.
Yeah. I think the teal with the purple with the yellow is just too many colours.
Yeah, It's a lot going on. Like, is it what the inside of Avra's brain looks like? Probably. However, it doesn't look cohesive and aesthetically pleasing. And probably neither does Avra. So, that's...
He's just a silly little guy hiding atop a wardrobe, fighting off possums.
Exactly. And aren't we all sometimes?
Aren't we all? The use of repetition in this book. I'm a big fan of repetition and all that thing. I'm a poet. Shoot me. But, like, the way it's used in this, both as to, like, have, like, repeating motifs, but then also just the way Avra speaks and the way he repeats things. He's like, tev, 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 and stuff like that. And it's just so endearing. It's just used so masterfully in this book in both ways. Yeah. It's like, yeah, we're going to talk about the spooky dentist again. I've never met the spooky dentist, but I know he said you should stop grinding your teeth.
I'm so sad that we don't meet the spooky dentist. But to be fair, their mystery kind of makes them even better.
Yeah. The spooky dentist and the spooky dildos. All you need on a ship.
I want to know what makes them spooky so bad. Is it just that Tev's using them and Tev's a little bit spooky? Like,
who can say?
I don't know. This is an aside from the spooky dildos, but I desperately need a map of this world. Not because I needed one, because actually you don't need the geography, but I just want one. Please. And I want to put it on my wall. Thank you.
Please and thank you.
I love the way that, like, there was a little bit of this with Taste of Gold 9, but not that much, because you do spend the majority of the time in Arasht. Here, because you've got, like, so many glimpses into, like, different cultures, because there were, like, people from different places at Scuttle Cove. Like, all of the different fashions, and then even, like, little insights into, like, cultural idiosyncrasies and stuff. Like, with the communication, like, when they were talking to that other crew, and they didn't have, like, the language in common, and they were just trying to, like, get through little things, and then establishing, like, what, like, particular words meant and stuff like that. I just had so much fun with that. I love some organic kind of world building that slipped in there.
Yeah, I never felt like I was well dumped too. Well dumped? Lore dumped?
Yeah.
I never felt like I was lore dumped too. I felt like I had a very good grip on the setting, even though I haven't read A Taste of Gold 9. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that it felt very natural, but I was also like, well, I can't, like, get out of my brain that I already, like, know what the countries are called and stuff like that, So I was like, how would it be if you went into this, with this being your first one? And I'm like, absolutely fine, I think. Like,
yeah,
they're not ordered.
And we've got Fantasy Tarot, that's always fun.
Yes, I
that's
want
like,
a
hey,
deck.
you need to get laid.
Would
you like the bower again? I love when that's incorporated as, like, a thing.
I should just take it out at this point. I did love that as, like, a little framing device for each chapter as well, because he went in being like, oh, I wonder how that's going to affect the chapter. It reminded me a bit, weirdly, of the very hyper-specific chapter titles at the beginning of Percy Jackson chapters, where you're like, how are they going to get to this thing? And then you're like, oh, this is how they get to this thing.
Yeah. I will say one thing that's really confusing about the audiobook is that the narrator doesn't go, chapter 13. He just goes 13, which is really helpful, except for when the chapter is chapter 13 and then the number of the card is 14. And you're like, 13, 14. And then you're like, hang on a sec. And then I had to go and get my physical copy and check and be like, did I miss a chapter? Did I miss a chapter when I first read this? What is happening? And
Yeah.
I was like,
I can see that being an issue. Should probably have gone with chapter 13 and then a long pause and then maybe even card 14. As like a little amendment. Yeah, reading physically, that was fine because it's in like a different box.
Yeah. I feel like I need to read this physically to see how it's written. Because
You
I
need to see
can't
Tev's
picture
handwriting.
it. Is it different?
It's different.
I think maybe not in my proof copy, possibly.
It's different in the final edition. Also, very nice to just have... This world has already, like, normalized non-binary identities and stuff, so I wasn't shocked that, like, Tev's arc was, like, nothing to do with their gender, really. I mean, a little bit of stuff about, like, their prophet also being non-binary, and then coming from, like, a genderless society, but then still choosing to remain that way is very interesting and stuff. But I was like, this is nice. They just get to be a pirate captain.
Mm-hmm.
And have a spooky ghost ship.
Yeah. It was refreshing. I think because I'd seen this advertised at some point, or somebody I'd seen go, oh my god, it's an MMM romance. And I was like,
Oh.
It's a what?
It's not.
It's not, I promise you.
It's very much not that, guys.
People love to do that when they find mask-coded
Non-binary characters.
M and B relationships. I have noticed it as an issue. Dragonfall also has this issue.
Oh no.
People love to advertise that as an MM romance or an MF romance even.
Ew. Okay.
It's really annoying.
And
then I go into their comment section and I go, just to let you know this is an MNB romance. And they go, oh, I didn't notice that. I don't think it's ever really said that explicitly. And I'm like, hello? Did we read the same book? There's many chapters about gender. What are we doing?
I haven't even read the book and I'm very aware of this. Like, come on, guys, please.
People are strange.
Yeah, that's very disappointing.
Yeah.
Especially when it's like a non-binary author as well in both of these cases.
Yeah.
And that's upsetting.
Well, I did find it very refreshing in this book that we never at any point know what parts Tev is working with.
Yes.
That was very, like, good soup. Especially when it's such a sex-based book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. None of our business.
None of our business. It's only Avra's business and Julian's business if he's interested.
Exactly. And I think he is by the end there.
He is. Yeah.
You know, that little fade to black.
Kind of iconic of him.
I loved the whole, like, mystery to the sea serpents and how that all works. I thought that was such a cool bit of world building and foreshadowed and built up so well with our glowing dogs and our pouring stuff into the water and stuff like that, and the stripes being cut out of the other serpent on Avra's little mission.
Yeah, it's well peppered.
In some ways, I was looking back on this and I was like, I'm almost surprised that it feels so satisfying, because in many ways they had a lot of the information to begin with. Like, Avra, for example, already knew about them cutting out the stripes. It just took a conversation with Julian for them to, like, regain that information. And then there was a little nugget of information at the cake competition that kind of did just need to be relayed to them. And I think, like, even from... I'm planning a one-shot with Morgan and some friends at the moment, and I was thinking about, like, how do I make things interesting, particularly in a less combat-focused game? And I was like, oh, just finding things out from people is kind of boring, right? Like, there needs to be some more organic discovery. But probably because Riordan is such a good character writer, and all of the dialogue is so much fun. And also even everything surrounding the dialogue. Like, that little conversation between, I'm forgetting the name, Lila?
I think because she's just called Grandma a bunch of the time, or Grandma.
Granny Layla.
Granny Layla, there we go.
That conversation between Granny Layla and Avra and Julian would not have been as exciting without the stardust wine and the glowing water and the cake and the little, like, the slight theatricalness of the story in the flashback, and then also just, like, the hilariousness of the cake competition.
Yeah.
And the rule being that you have to insult everybody's cake. Amazing.
Honestly, I was living for just, like, every time people just were, like, speaking, and then they go, and also because this is a terrible cake, by the way, are you sure it's even a cake? I don't want to look at it. And then just carrying on. It's
going to give me nightmares for the rest of my life.
I want to have a cake competition like that with my friends, where we all try to make the most terrible cake.
And we also all try to sabotage each other, and we're also allowed to bribe the judges once.
Yes.
And we release a bunch of seagulls.
We need to do it in Devon, because there's seagulls here all the time.
Yeah, I was about to say, should we just come down to you and then it'll be fine?
Yeah. Literally just need to go onto, like, a green space anywhere with any sort of food, and you will meet the seagulls.
Denny, honestly, if any of the bookworms listening to this happen to be very, very loyal fans, you also just need to listen to our early episodes and you will hear the seagulls. We should have hired the crew of the Rising Sun to protect Morgan while recording.
Which is crazy, because I was living in a basement flat then, and now I live in a roof flat, and we have less seagulls interrupting recordings.
To deal with. Yeah, I don't know.
How? I don't understand.
I'm not questioning it. I'm not looking a gift horse in the mouth. I'm delighted.
They do love to have fights on the roof at, like, 8 in the morning, though.
And that's why we don't record at 8 in the morning. Also, because we're never awake at 8 in the morning by choice.
Well, yeah. I get woken up by screeches, and they stand on top of the skylight, and I'm like, please don't come in through the open window, because you could if you wanted to.
Good God.
But they haven't yet. We did have a pigeon, but that came in through a different route.
Okay.
It did come in, but it was through a different route. Truly cursed existence.
This is why you can't trust birds.
I agree. I've got a whole podcast about it.
If you don't trust birds, listener, you should go check out the outing monologues.
I think this book works because at no point does Rowland, like, acknowledge that what's happening is silly. I think all of the characters commit to the bit, and Rowland commits to the bit, and just so earnestly invests in the world, and all the characters are so earnest in who they are, that it's just so cohesive that you can get lost in it, and there's no break of disbelief at any point.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is happening is objectively funny, but also, like, you as the reader are taking the cake competition as seriously as everybody else.
Yeah.
It's like, no, Julian, this is the cake competition. Like,
yeah, come on, Julian. The cake competition. Yeah. Why do we care? It's just cake.
Exactly.
I'm sorry? You're insulting the cake competition in front of my salad? No.
Precisely. Like, you're so in it with the characters, like, 100%. Like, Rowland is approaching everything with such earnesty. And why wouldn't you? Because it's earnest for the characters. Like, this is their life. This is serious to them. So it becomes serious to you as the reader, because I think you could probably, like, make a mistake if you lampshaded a little bit too much, or if you kind of got a little bit sarcastic with your narration, which I would understand the impulse to do, because it could be funny. But I think if you did that, it would ruin the momentum and ruin the immersion. Because there's none of that. It's like, yeah, we're here. It all hinges on the cake competition.
Yeah. This is the climax.
I knew it would be the climax. I was talking to my housemate about this book yesterday, and I was like, oh, I'm almost at the end. And I was like explaining, like, vaguely the premise of, like, there's this. I didn't say, we were joking before this recording started about the fact that Avra is listed as a retired spy in the blurb, but I was like, no, like a masochistic little poet or whatever. I don't know what I said he was, but I said something like that. I was explaining the premise, and I was like, oh, I think, this is going to happen and this is going to happen. And then I was like, but they've been pretty heavily foreshadowing the cake competition. And she was like, what? And I was like, so I think that's when, that's going to be the denouement, just the cake competition. And she was like, I've got to read this, I guess, because I don't know what the hell you're saying. Like, you were telling me about pirates and, like, stolen recipes, and now you're saying, well, it's all going to hinge on the cake competition. So
the cake competition. It's very important. It's make or break.
Yeah. But I think that is what it is. Like, even, Scully, the skull being carved into the cliffs, is dead serious to everybody involved. Like, Avra is like, no, this is a serious artistic endeavor. And it is. It's like 30 years of this guy's life,
Yeah. And I love how Avra, when he's talking to the Truth Witch, is like, I need to introduce her to Scully. Oh my gosh, look at those cheekbones. He's going to fall over for these.
Oh my god, it was amazing. I loved those interactions. The Truth Witch was also just so funny.
Yes. Overloaded by Julian.
Yeah.
And he's like so soft with her, and she's like, I think my entire worldview has been, maybe this has single-handedly unindoctrinated me. What is going on?
Gonna go get a chair and sit outside. I hope she feels better.
Julian's like, I'm just gonna politically rant you to death. Have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it works.
Also, shout out to ill-faced Yusef. What an iconic character. I love him. He was also very heavily foreshadowed, and then he was only in, like, one scene, but it was a wonderful scene.
I don't remember who that is.
He's the restaurateur.
Oh, yes.
The curry restaurateur, yeah. And the cave, the holy cave, but he has his business in the holy cave.
Yes. Iconic.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. If I got to the end of a pilgrimage and he was there, I'd say, okay.
I would definitely have some curry.
Yeah. Pretty good curry.
I love a good yellow curry. So I've got to ask one of our favourite questions, but I think it's going to be very hard in this case. Do you have a favourite character?
I think it's got to be Avra.
Ooh.
I don't think it's actually that hard. I think I just love him.
Yeah.
He's charmed me.
That's so fair.
With his chaotic ways and his
You're describing him as
possums.
charming and dashing. Did you perhaps read Julian's memoir by mistake?
Yes, actually. I fell for the indoctrination. I read that before I read this, and I was like, yes, I see him. The hero of the story.
Yeah.
He's so charming and endearing and earnest. And he likes what he likes. And he pays his tab on time. And he's nice to customer service workers.
Yeah.
That's all you can ask for in a man, to be honest.
No, the bar has to be higher than that, Morgan. We can do better than that, I promise. Like, his whole heart is in everything he does. It's so sweet. The fact that he just gave the nightingale sails to Tav. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I'm going to say this in a public podcast. I just love a sub-character, okay? They charm me. They're so, they just want to be good. They just want to be looked after, and they want to look after people.
That's true.
That's what I like in a character.
Or in some cases, be in trouble, and I think Avra has a mix of both.
Yeah.
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 I did love Tev as well. I love the like spooky, like, I'm in a different genre, I'm so serious.
Yeah.
I am the gravedigger's child. Yeah, and then it's like, okay, but you're still down bad, okay.
You have a jester on your ship and you absolutely can't get rid of him, regardless of what you want to do. So this is just going to be how it is.
Yeah.
What can you do? Nothing.
Exactly.
Sleep with him. That's it.
I suppose.
It's your only option, apparently.
Yeah. Such a hardship.
Exactly.
Yeah. What about you, Soren? Who's your favourite character? Decisions.
I enjoyed Julian a lot because I warmed up to him initially. He was a hard sell, he's blonde. I had to, it took some time.
But I feel like he's quite a you character at the same time.
Really? Ooh, yeah. I guess he's like a scholar.
Scholar, religious trauma, principled, but also angry.
I liked his rant. Yeah, he won me over very much at the end there when he was going on his little rant, and he was clearly kind of also processing it out loud as he was saying everything that had happened to him. And then also when he was like, if I get my hands on the secret, everybody's getting it. And I was like, love that.
Yeah. Your type of character seems really put together and proper and noble, but just under like a tiny thin layer is the most chaotic and messed up and angry character you find.
That's true. And
especially
especially if they seem polite, but under the layer of politeness, and I'm going to have to censor this, but I can't think of a good synonym. They're a little bit of a and Julian he's a little bit of a
yeah.
Just enough, the right amount.
Yeah.
It's like polite front layer and then heart of gold underneath the layer. That's the formula, and he does have it. I'll find out a way to just figure out to say that makes sense, but it's fine.
No, I see it. I see the vision.
I do think Avra still won, I'm afraid. I've got to Team Avra.
Agree.
Like, he was just such a fun narrator. I know it was like third person limited, but like you were mostly in Avra's cadence the whole time, kind of thing, with how things were being described. And yeah, he was very interesting. He was like multifaceted. I think having like a jokey character as the main protagonist can get old very quickly sometimes. But he was layered. He's like an onion. He has depth. He's so interesting. Like one of the like little like mini arcs that was going on, like emotional arcs in the background, him like coming to terms with the fact that he has defected from Arasht, he can never go home, and then starting to see Scuttler's Cove as home was like very sweet, especially like in those conversations with the ambassador when he was like, culturally I can feel myself drifting away from you, like I actually don't want to like identify with much of this anymore. And there was lots of interesting conversations about that, like in general, like with Julian being like, these are the aspects of my religion that are still important to me, and Tev being like the same, and also like here's like the things that I love about my homeland, like its natural beauty, but not the oppressive cultists. Unfortunately. I feel like every character is so amazing though. Markefa and Elat, love them both. Very cute as a double act as well.
Oscar, an icon.
Oscar, Cat. I love Cat with all my heart. I've already said it, I'll say it again.
Everybody.
All of the other captains as well. Rowland, I think, is fantastic at allowing you to recognize characters despite introducing a bunch. Like, we got almost the whole crew immediately after meeting Avra. Like, we spaced it out a bit. We got Oscar and Markefa first, and then Tev, and then kind of learned about new people a little bit more drip-fed. But then there's that scene when they're talking about selling the... They never really call it a thing. I'm going to call it Serpent's Bane. The Serpent's Bane recipe, or whatever. And we meet, like, a bunch of the heavy hitter captains at the same time. But they're also, like, unique and interesting. That's absolutely fine. And there's definitely still things left hanging here. What was going on with the puppeteer? What were you doing? Who are you? Why were you there? Tell me more.
Book 3, let's go.
Exactly. I'm sure these things will come up eventually. I hope so, sincerely.
Yeah. I hope that Tor understand that this book was... I hope it sold well. I think it sold well.
I think it did.
But I hope that now publishers understand we want comedy.
Yes. Tor, I'm shaking you by the shoulders. I don't actually even care what the genre is, but can you just publish anything that Alexandra Rowland writes ever? Thank you. I want a fancy edition of Tardik and the Princess. I want Yield Under Great Persuasion that I don't have to get through Amazon. Please. I want the self-published stuff from before A Taste of Golden Iron as well, please. Thank you. I will pay you so much money.
I feel like there's such a missing niche in the market for like fantasy comedy and even sci-fi comedy. I feel like like you get some of it, but it will often be like a romantasy that's funny. And I guess this is a romantasy, but it feels like that's not so
the
much
main
the
focus.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would list comedy and adventure before I listed romance if I was talking about this book. Like, it does have some incredibly sweet romantic moments, but...
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like that's such a missing niche.
Mm.
And I feel like the only sci-fi comedy I've really come across is through podcasts. So...
Yeah, that's a good point.
More genre comedy. We're getting genre horror now. Now we need genre comedy. It's my hot take.
Yeah, I would love to see more of that. I think there's possibly precedent for it to start coming in more with this and somewhat with the cozy fantasy rise, just because low stakes genre fiction is getting more attention. And then that leaves room for, like, a lot of the cozy fantasy that we've been seeing so far has been romance, which makes sense because romance is generally like lower stakes. But comedy is also generally lower stakes. So that's, you know, it doesn't all need to be romance, guys. Or just romance.
Yes, please.
Favourite scene? I feel like there's so much competition for favourite scene in this for me that
I did start a list.
Oh.
On my phone.
I want to shout out to Blue Dog scene where Tev is crying by the pond / lake. And then Julian and Avra are comforting them. Very sweet. And I think one of the first more character-heavy moments that you get from those three, I guess. Like, there's been seeds of it, but that's kind of...
Yeah. Also, I do have that listed on my favourite scenes, mainly because of when Tev is like, there's room on this other tit if you want.
Yes, incredible.
Like, okay, we can share the hot man, fine.
I'm sure Julian is very pillowy.
Are you developing a daddy thing about Julian?
I forgot about that. How did I forget about that? And also about the ambassador, right? There was a conversation about that as well. Oh my god.
Tev was like, I know how fast you pick up new kinks. I don't want to hear about it.
No. But I was like, I can be if you want me to be. And Tev's like, no, I don't. Stop.
Just give me half an hour to work up to it.
Yeah. Oh my lord.
Oh, when they lock Avra in the hold, Avra just screams captain just over and over and over again.
And Oscar is like crying.
Oscar loses.
Poor Oscar, he really doesn't deserve this. He's just minding his own business, hacking sea serpents to bits with this axe. He also thinks he's in a different genre, I think. And he didn't sign up for any of this.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's just the way everybody tries to bribe each other back and forth with like the randomest things. Like everyone's like, Avra, you can sing the song if you want. And he's like, okay, I'll be good now. And then Avra's like, Tev, I can tell you about the time this ghost tried to fill me up.
I forgot about that as well somehow.
It's just such a fun way to interact.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's my list. Also, obviously, the possums.
The possum scene. Amazing. That was kind of the first long-winded Avra Tev scene that we get, and it really goes far in establishing their dynamic. You understand everything that's going on. No, not quite everything.
And then it runs as a metaphor. It's like, you could come join me in the alley.
Yeah.
We could fight the possums together.
What if we went into the alley together to eat mouldy bread and we were both possums?
5 feet apart.
Just kidding, unless...
Would you still love me if I was
a possum? Oh my god. Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I wanted to say. I will say, as well, with the approach of like discussing sex and sexuality very frankly, it was nice to have sex workers being like interesting characters, not main characters here, but like that approach felt like nuanced and interesting and nice. And, like Kat was like, yeah, here I am and this is my job.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah.
And also having a diversity of gender among the sex workers, because I feel like even when a lot of settings will claim to be like, oh, there's no misogyny, it's all diverse, and then they won't actually think any further than that.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, and I guess it's like, oh yeah, there's like one man in the brothel. And it's like, I don't think you've actually thought about your world building very well.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas this was like, yeah, vibes.
Yeah.
It felt very in universe.
Yeah, natural.
Natural. And Kat's just like, I want a shelf of things that you steal from the ambassador's house.
I love Kat.
I will charge people to come see it.
With his parasol.
Yeah.
He's just, what an icon. I'm obsessed with him, actually. Yeah. I need Kat fan art. I was looking, when I finished, for fan art, and there was, like, only fan art of Avra, and I do love Avra, but I need, like, everybody else, please. Thank you. I would like so much Alexandra Rowland fan content in general. I need more fan fiction as well. There's probably more Golden fan fiction than when I last looked.
Should I have a look right now?
But look, if Rowland is not going to give me the Fade to Black at the end of this book themselves, somebody has to do it. I'm sorry.
Be the fan fiction you want to see in the world, Soren.
I don't know if I can write that.
Let's have a look. This is the new segment we do on the show.
Yeah, we've been doing this a lot recently, and you know what? I enjoy it.
See, will these be listed under 2 different books? Probably.
Yeah, they are. Because it's not... The Mahiste Dynasty is one series.
Uh-huh.
And Tardak and the Princess and Taste of Gold 9 are both part of that together. But this isn't. I don't know if this is like a full standalone.
Running Close to the Wind 12?
12? It's higher than I would have guessed, to be honest. So I'm happy with that.
Sequel to the book directly after the end. I mean it, there is no plot. They just...
Thank God.
3,000 words.
Someone's out there fixing us all. Thank you so much to everyone in fandom.
Oh, somebody's written about the spooky dildo collection.
I don't know if I want to know about that, actually. What makes them spooky? No, I don't need to know. Oh my lord. Should we final thoughts and recommendations? We're like an hour in already.
Yeah, I just want to finish scrolling. Yeah, they're all 1 out of 1, so
okay,
they're all finished.
Incredible. Well, that's nice. How many of them are you rated?
Lots. 5.
I would actually expect it to be more, I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of tension in this book that doesn't really get resolved, you know? I mean, it gets resolved, but we don't get to, you know? Anyway.
Anyway. Soren, as the new person to this book, what are your final thoughts?
I am besotted. I am bedeviled. I am, in a positive way. I am bewildered, also in a positive way. I love it so much. I'm so happy that I finally got to read this. I will definitely read everything that Rowland ever writes for the rest of their life. I'm so sold. I'm so sold on this world. I loved meeting these characters, and I'm so invested in them emotionally. And yeah, this was genuinely just the funniest thing I've ever read in my entire life. So I cannot be more effusive about my praise, because it's a maximum. In fact, this book is like a cake. It's like a cake, and it's nuanced about its themes. It's an interesting interpretation of those themes. It's beautifully presented. It's durable.
It's durable. It would survive if you threw it down a table.
It would survive if you threw it down a table. It contains a skull. What were the other metrics? Compassion. Was one of Kat's metrics compassion? Either way, this book would win the cake competition. And in fact, it makes all of the other cakes look pretty terrible. I don't even want to look at another cake after I read this book. So, after I've eaten this cake, I don't know. It's getting away from me. Morgan, what are your final
Mixing those
thoughts?
metaphors a bit too hard. Yeah, I love this book. It holds up on a second read. It's the funniest thing I've ever read. I would happily read it again. Yeah, I will recommend it to everybody. Everybody wants pirates, but nobody's talking about this book.
This is crazy. I feel like I would give this as a gift to so many people. It's so fun. You know, sometimes you're like, oh, this person would like this book, but it's sad, or it's, you know, it's heavy or whatever. But I'm like, what? I can't think of how your day could not be improved by Running Close to the Wind. So
exactly. I feel like I have such a problem with recommending people funny things, because people are like, I want something like lighthearted and comedic, and I'm always like,
same.
I can give you angst with a happy ending.
Yes.
I can give you this TV show that made me cry 3 times. What was the point again? So
my story graph
it's nice
tags
to have
are
something
emotional and reflective are my top 2. And then adventurous, which is more fun.
Yeah. It's nice to have something that's unapologetically funny.
Exactly. But also it has so much heart. And like, it's everything. It's got everything. What more could you possibly want?
Exactly.
Dismantle monopolies. That's my final thought. Do we have any recommendations for fans of Running Close to the Wind? Speaking of the problem that we were just having about recommending funny things. I've got something, but it's not a book.
Yeah.
Trice Forgotten by Rusty Quill, which is a pirate audio drama. It's queer, it's sapphic specifically, so if you lean more that way and you were like, wow, this would be even better if it was a sapphic flavour, there you go. It's really funny. It's diverse in that, like, not everyone's white, which is also a fun part about this, and also, like, there's non-binary characters, there's, like, characters with various different sexualities and things, there's a breadth of representation, which is fun. It's gorgeously sound designed, really well written, really well acted. I want it to blow up so that we can finally, one day, get a second season. I'm languishing, I'm delusional in my hopes, but I will continue to hope because it's just so good and I can't recommend it enough. And it's completely free. And if you're listening to this on like a podcatcher, just type Trice Forgotten in and listen to the first episode. Not until you finish our episode, obviously. But when you're done, go listen to Trice Forgotten. And you know what? If you don't like it, then you're going to have to, like, I don't know, come to my house and tell me why, because I don't believe you.
Okay.
I don't know.
I mean, obviously, if you've read this, then you're probably familiar with Our Flag Means Death. So that's a classic comp.
I've still only seen one episode of that, so I can't really recommend it personally.
5.
There you go. But I enjoyed the one episode that I saw. I just don't watch a lot of TV at the moment. So
fair. I mean, all the pirate media I've consumed is very sad.
Yeah. We can recommend some sad pirate. You know, there's emotions in this.
You know.
As long as our listening bookworms know what they're going into, I think that's fair.
This is true. I mean,
they might just want more serious pirates. Maybe that's, what they're in the mood for.
Black Sails, the TV show. It's got gay pirates.
It's got
but
gay pirates.
They're actually having to deal with homophobia because it's set in the golden age of piracy. And it's
rather than
super sad. And the main character is a terrible person.
This is tangential as hell. But I would like to mention Evocation by S.T. Gibson. In that it is about a slow developing poly relationship where you very much see how 3 is better than 2 for these particular people. And there's a lot of like dealing with past traumas and stuff together. And the new one is coming out pretty soon, so that's exciting. I think it will be out by the time this releases, in fact. So that's book 1 of the Summoner's Circle series, and it is urban fantasy following... Are they called magicians? What are they called? Witches?
Sorcerers? I don't know.
Sorcerers?
I think probably magicians. Or warlocks.
I'm trying to Google it.
Summoners.
Summoners. There you go. Could have guessed that from
Circle.
the Summoner's Circle. Summoners. It's an urban fantasy following summoners, and it's got fantasy elements as well, but it's not second world like this is.
Pretty good.
Definitely a much more serious tone, but it does have funny moments, so.
Yes. I was going to say I have 8 books in my poly shelf on Goodreads, but none of them fit the tone, or the vibes, or anything.
That's so fair.
Unless you want to read a book about the American prison industrial complex.
Maybe.
It's really good.
This is quite like anti-oppression in general. I'm trying to make connections here. We can always turn the question over to our audience and say, you know what? We're not very good on funny books, but if you have anything, tell us.
Yes.
We can have more fun on the podcast instead of just being like, and then your wife turns into seawater, and then you get eaten by a creature that unhinges its jaw, and it has guinea pig teeth in its throat.
As you do.
As you do.
I used to track what books made me laugh, but I've stopped doing that, and I need to get back into it.
Yeah, I kind of stopped doing that too because it's actually just quite rare. Especially if you're like genuinely counting like a laugh aloud. Like I'll find something funny but not laugh. Particularly, I think this has been scientifically proven, is that even if you're like watching something with somebody else, you're far more likely to laugh as opposed to if you're watching something on your own, because laughing is like a social thing. Like you're signaling to people around you that you find something funny.
That's cool.
So if I'm watching something alone, I can be like, this is hilarious, but also not laugh. So it has to really genuinely be up there for me to be laughing.
Yeah.
If I'm by myself. And obviously you're usually reading by yourself. So
there we go.
I think authors have a hard job because comedy is kind of social. Any podcasts? To be fair, we were talking about funny podcasts.
Suddenly, I've never listened to a podcast in my life. Here's how Wolf 359 can still win.
Weirdly, I was kind of also thinking about Wolf 359, even though it's science fiction.
It's on a ship.
It's on a ship. Ship is in space, but that's not relevant.
And it's about anti-capitalism.
And it is about anti-capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also kind of like running away from the past. And I feel like it's probably Eiffel is the reason that we're both thinking of it, in that it has a very sort of like comedic, light-hearted narrator who's always getting up to shenanigans and doing so at the expense of the patience of his captain.
And eventually has a heart of gold at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And also he has like, yeah, he's like a genuinely interesting and complex character despite that initial impression.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good recommendation. I'll co-sign it.
Yeah. And if we're going for characters who are just like pathetically down bad from the off, welcome to Night Vale. Probably not what you were expecting me to say.
No, not what I was expecting you to say.
But I feel like the way that Cecil describes Carlos a lot of the time is very reminiscent of Avra and Taveri. It's very sort of like, and his beautiful locks, and oh my god, I'm going to kill the hairdresser who touched his head because he ruined the beautiful locks.
Yeah. If somebody cut Julian's hair, Avra would kill them, I think. So he wouldn't even like choose to do it. He would just go into like a blind rage and then find himself like covered in their blood and be like, well, who can blame me, really?
The goddess of luck made me do it.
I'm just a little guy, you know? What can I say?
Just a little guy. Exactly. What are we doing next?
We are doing Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Grant with...
Oh, yes.
Drumroll.
Alex Abrahams.
Woo! From...
Who people would know from The Listless Network.
Yes.
From The Children of Room 56 and Tranthologies, and he has also acted in a bunch of other shows, including The Attic Monologues. So we have been vibing in the same circles for many years.
Exactly. And we've been trying to have him on for many years, so I'm very excited that we are finally going to do it. Yes. Scheduling, guys. It's real hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very exciting. I will admit I have read the book.
Oh, you have read this one?
Just to warn listeners.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, did you not know that?
I think I did and I forgot. Because remember we were going to do it and then the scheduling, I forgot. Yeah, that was a while ago.
It was a library hold that I had to read in like 3 days, and it's very long.
Fair enough.
So I'm very excited to reconsume it.
And I know nothing about this.
And to watch Soren read it.
So I'm very excited.
Yeah.
That will be out on August 25th.
But until then, you're always welcome to the bookcase.
Don't forget to scritch the cat on your way out.
Thank you for listening to The Hidden Bookcase, a production of Planar Prod. On this episode, you heard Morgan Greensmith and Storm Briarwood discussing Running Close to the Wind by Alexandra Rowland. You can find Rowland on Instagram at _Alex Rowland, or visit their website, alexrowland.net. You can find The Hidden Bookcase on Twitter and Blue Sky at Hidden Bookcase, and on Instagram, Facebook, Tumblr, and TikTok at Hidden Bookcase Podcast. Find out more about Planar Prod at planarprod.com. Know what we should read next, or want to chat to us about what you thought of this episode's read? You can reach us at thehiddenbookcase@gmail.com, send us a DM on social media, or come chat with your fellow bookworms in our growing Discord server. The link is in the show notes. Want to support The Hidden Bookcase? Support us on Patreon for bonus episodes, audio outtakes, playlists, and other extras. Buy a book through our bookshop.org page, or consider leaving us a rating or review, or telling a friend how to find us. Your whispers are the best way for bookworms to discover our show. For our next episode, which will be out on August the 25th, we'll be reading Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Grant, alongside guest Alex Abrahams. We hope to see you then, and in the meantime you're always welcome through the bookcase.